we'll go to discuss about that nature and culture, because you see, or the environment and culture, whatever you can tell. See, when the human being is living in the lap of the nature since the inception of human life, or since the inception of nature, whatever, we don't know the real fact of origin and all, because still the controversy is continuing whether the nature comes first or the man comes first. But anyhow, most of the explanation has given justification that nature comes first, then man comes later on, because even starting from the our Hindu Puranic mythology and all, and also the Bible and all, everything claimed that the nature was being first created by the supernatural power. Then the human being was created to look after the nature. So anyhow, what I'm telling here, and uh, today's topic is very debatable, that how both nature and cultures are interlinked, and whether the culture determines our environment or the nature, or the nature determines our culture and environment. Because moving to that, we'll have so many aspects of discussion, that what exactly it means. See, if you look into that, the nature and culture kind of divide. So it is prolonged since centuries. There are lots of peoples are being debating, and specifically, if you look into the anthropologists, usually they have given a very insight interpretation to the nature-culture relation and the division between the nature and the culture, because they have developed certain kind of theoretical foundation, and from which you'll find that the nature-culture relations in a proper way. So prior to that, you see, what exactly the nature, what the nature means for us. See, if you look at the nature, specifically in a broader sense, generally whenever we tell environment or nature, people usually believe that nature means the physical environment where we people reside. See, it is generally, whenever we are telling about the nature, it is generally a natural or physical setup, or a material world, or the universe. Okay, generally we reflect on that, uh, where life in general grown off. So that means, you see, whenever we are telling the nature, it is a kind of, it is a larger part of generally comes in the discipline of science. Because generally, look at the science, generally they mostly focus on the nature, the evolution of the natures, and they do a lots of interpretation, scientific interpretation on the nature and natural surroundings, and the environment. And whenever we are telling the pollution, environment, nature, and all these things, so generally it comes in the domain of science and all. But you see, if you look into the kind of challenges before us, is to embrace the world of man, but also that part of the world which human interact. Because you see, when we are telling the nature or the environment, it is not only we are trying to focus on the physical surrounding, rather also we are trying to study the part of the world with which human interact, human interface, human develop a kind of a relationship. That exactly we are trying to explore. Because what exactly I told you, that the nature of the environment not just refers to the a kind of biophysical context, but also the human interaction with, and also interpretation uh, of that context, which is culturally perceived the environment. Therefore, it's not just a thing, means if you tell the environment or the nature, it is not just a thing which people adopt. Rather, it is a set of ongoing relationship between a kind for a mutual adaptation between the culture and the material world. Okay? Because you see, what my intention of telling here is that the nature of the environment, what it may be for science that it is a material world and all, and when somebody asks us that the environment, when somebody asks, we usually tell the physical surrounding of human society or the animal society, whatever. But you see, but for us here, the nature of the environment is not simply a physical surrounding, but rather a surrounding where we try to explore the interaction and interrelationship which the human being has adopted for a kind of mutual adaptation between the culture and material world. The human populations, mostly they're socially organized and oriented by means of particular culture, because you see, Uh, if you look at our kind of pattern of life, you'll find that our pattern of life is specifically molded by a particular culture. Because the peoples, you think about, we are the students from different states, from different region of the country, even we have other students from various parts of the world. If you look into our way of behavior, if you look into our dressing pattern, food pattern, everything is being decided by a particular geographical territory. Whenever we are telling the peoples from southern India are having the such so and so kind of dress pattern, the people of South India are having so and so kind of food pattern, the people of Northern India is having so and so kind of dress pattern and so kind of food pattern. And if you look at this kind of celebration, the pattern of uh, the marriage, the pattern of celebration of other life cycle rituals, you'll find that there is a differences from the region to region. When you are telling the difference in the region to region, from north to south, east to west, it reflects that the culture here changing from a kind of physical uh, geographical division means negative, because when we are telling here the south and north, it is a geographical division. So that means a difference in the geographical land uh, means immediately having an impact on our cultural patterns, cultural behavior, cultural lifestyle. So that happens here. So does a kind of I mean, it is not only that in the contemporary location, geographical location where we are making a study, rather we are trying to explore that how the relationship is being developed in course of time, and how the same human beings are developing a different kind of cultural pattern when the physical world has been changed. So that exactly our intention of reflection. So here you see, so prior to getting into that, we should also have a certain conceptual clarity, also on culture, because we discussed about what exactly nature, and I was telling about it is not only a physical environment, rather there is a kind of mutual adaptation between the man and human beings. See, so now it is high time to look into what is the culture. And you all know that what exactly culture is, because whenever you studied the Indian society and all, you might have gone through the concept of culture. So generally, if somebody asks us what exactly the culture is, in a very simple word, we usually remember the E.B. Toilet's definition of culture and all. So a culture is a kind of way of life of a group of peoples, their behavior, their beliefs, their customs, their values, their symbols they use, generally without thinking about them, and that are passed along by communication and imitation from one generation to other generation. See, the person born and brought up in a particular regions adopt the cultural lifestyle of that regions. It is either through communications or through physical imitation. Once wherever you see that the the people living in your region and the way your parents, your siblings, your family members are behaving, their lifestyle, their food style, which we adopt from the very beginning of our life. So, as of now, all of you are at your home, so you have not left your place and all. But once the institute will reopen and you will back to the campus and all, what you will find, you will find that the lifestyle, uh, the food patterns, everything you will find that huge differences. And why we immediately react over that? Because it takes certain time for a cultural adaptation. Because when your physical environment got changed, immediately your climatic fluctuation will reflect your uh, kind of food habits and all. So then your dress habit, your food habits, all these things will be changed, and then immediately you'll start reacting. See, we are telling that the culture is what defines a group of peoples and identifies them as a separate and a unique from those around them. So, means if here you see, whenever we are telling the culture, here the culture is reflecting that a particular group of peoples or a segment of peoples having a different kind of set of language, different kind of ritualistic practices, a different kind of dress practices, and they have a different kind of myths and knowledge that they pass from one generation to other generation. It is symbol communications. Culture is a symbolic communication. So, man, here you see, nobody tells you that this is my culture, that culture. When you born and brought up, when you born and start picking up in the process of socialization, and when you start to brought up in a particular area, so there you will find that you have to slowly adopt the different kind of things which is reflected in a very symbolic way. It is not that somebody will tell you you have to adopt this, you have to do this, that thing. See, most of the things we also learn because suppose you see in a different setup and when people we learn to do namaskar and all these things, it is not that somebody tells us, rather whenever some seniors comes we see that parents do the namaskar and others senior siblings do namaskar and all, pranam, namaskar, whatever. So generally the younger generation usually see and immediately do that. Okay, because they may not be aware about the person, but immediately they feel that somebody is a respectable person has come to the home for which they behave differently. So now it's high time to look into the nature and culture division and the nature and culture relationship. Uh, if you look into that, sometimes some people believe that the nature and culture are two opposite contents or ideas. What they believe that the whatever is belongs to the nature, it may not be always the result of human intervention, and on the other hand, cultural development is also achieved against the nature. Means what exactly some people are clarifying that they're telling that there is also a kind of division between the nature and culture. What they're telling, uh, they're telling whatever you find in the nature, everything is not the product of human intervention. Because you'll find that there are something which is developed in the nature without the intervention of the human beings. Means It is developed on its own and much before the human intervention. And also, you'll see that sometimes the human beings develop a new kind of cultural pattern, a cultural lifestyle, which is dead against the nature. Because you see, suppose your working style, your now lifestyle. See, we are always suppose we are using the air conditioned house. We are using the air conditioned car, air conditioned house, and all this. This is the culture. This is a culture of some group of peoples, higher class peoples have developed a sense of culture of living in an air conditioned house, living in the air conditioned car, and all. I have told you that. Uh, even see these are all the kind of see whenever we are living in the nature teaches us how to adapt to the nature. But whenever we are going the see suppose the hot, cool, rainy season, all this part of our natural settings, where in the nature behaves as per the seasons. So here you see, so these are natural settings, but the human culture used to be changed as per the natural settings. But a group of people who are always considered a higher class, they have developed a different kind of set of lifestyle where they develop certain kind of culture which is against the natural setting and which is against the nature's wills. Suppose you see your air conditioned house, your air conditioned car, and all these things are against the nature's wills. Nature never told you it is a mid of summer and you should live in a very chilled room, putting your AC in the into 16 and all, because this and at the moment you are using AC and all, you are using again creating carbon dioxide, which is against the nature also. Means sometimes what is happening? We are developing the we have seen the nature which is not all the byproduct of culture, and we have seen the culture which is against not the byproduct of the nature, rather also sometimes the against of the wills of the natures. So that's why there is also a kind of division between the nature and culture. No, it is not that always wise to tell that both the things are always depend on each other. Rather, some division is also visible in the society. Studies in the evolutionary development of humans suggest that culture is part and parcel of ecological needs, which our species thrived, thus rendering culture as a chapter in the biological development of the species. What exactly some of the people claim that? They claim that as a human beings, in the context of nature, generally what happen, the ecological needs. So they whenever the development needs and in a particular region, in a particular environment, they adopt the different kind of lifestyle and all. He was means if you look into this kind of overall things, our attention is to the way in which a particular population purposefully or uh, unintentionally shaped its environment, and the way in which its relationship with the environment shapes its culture and its social, economic, and political lives. So, means here what exactly our intention to reflect is that we have to explore where we can clearly study the kind of way means in which a particular group of population they purposely or unintentionally they develop, either purposefully they develop or unintentionally they develop certain kind of environment. They give a new shape to the environment, and the way which the relations to the environment is being changed, their cultural lifestyle and all. So that's why it is highly important to look into the nature culture division and nature culture relationship. I was telling about the ecological needs and all. Uh, See, if you look into that, generally, we have a tendency, you see, we have a tendency of worshipping the nature, we have a tendency of worshipping the sun, moon, stars, and mountains, we worship. Because you see, the moment we keep on worshipping all these natural settings, it becomes our culture. It becomes our part of life. It becomes a way of life for us. And through that, what exactly happens? We started a setting of a new culture where the environment always being given the prior space. And means what exactly happens? The every living beings are having a, an ecological needs, and within that ecological needs, what exactly happens? The human beings interact, the human being live, and the human beings behaves in a different way. And if you look into that, the culture is a part and parcel of the ecological needs within which the human uh, live. Because if you look at an ecological needs, within that ecological needs, the human beings lives. So that within that, and once the human beings lives in a particular setting, it develops different kind of cultural traits. The uh, see generally, if you look into if you look one example, generally the snails. We have seen the snails in the sea, in the river, even in the ponds and all. What generally the snails, mostly in the sea and all, the snails carry their shells. And what exactly we do, we the human beings also living in that particular regions brings of that cell and do different kind of material culture we being developed, which becomes a part of our culture. Okay, because you see the people, whenever you see, you will not get the different products, the material products of cells. In the people, with the peoples living in the hilly area and all, the people living in the near to the coastal belt, near to the sea area, generally you'll find that they develop different kind of cultural patterns, cultural traits, cultural the material culture with the help of cells. So the cultural transmissions is also horizontal, because if you see the culture transfer from generation to generation, is mostly not a kind of vertical, rather it is a horizontal movement. Uh, or if you see that the whatever the cultural transmission you can find, even we can find in the same generation, and also you can find the either you can find a kind of cultural transmission within different generation or within the same generation among the individuals belong to the different populations. So means it is that the cultural transformation, the cultural transmission is not only confining to the particular group of peoples, rather it is very common to everybody and living in a very different kind of geographical region, in a different kind of culture, ecological settings. So what they do, they also a kind of transform a kind of different kind of cultural settings from some generation to the other generation. And horizontally, that cultural traits of life used to transfer from one generation to another generation of the life. See, what exactly we found in the cultural environment, that is very important to look into. What is exactly the cultural environment for us? It is a kind of, whenever I'm telling the culture, I have told you the belief system, belief, my custom, my tradition, my way of life is my culture. And when I'm telling a cultural environment, it is a set of beliefs, practices, customs, behaviors that are found to be common to everyone that is living within a particular uh, region. Means you see, whenever we found there is a common set of belief system, common set of customs, behaviors within a particular certain group of populations or within a certain population. So that means you see, you'll find that the people living in so and so area are used to behave so and so. Means there, means the people living in a particular area, their customs, belief system, their practices, their behavior used to be shaped as per the existing environment. The cultural environment set the way that every person develops, influencing the ideologies and personalities. Means what exactly happens now? The the environment of a particular region generally it shaped our personality development and it influences our ideologies, it influences our personalities, and it develops automatically a particular set of culture within us. Then you'll see generally some people look into that the culture in large, as in our culture, is in what exactly the culture they used to look into when they try to locate the relationship between the nature and culture. They try to understand the culture. It is an aggregate of the learned beliefs, attitudes, the values, the norms, customs of a society or a group of people shared by them or transmitted from generation to generation within the society. So that means culture is an integrated whole. Culture is an aggregate. Culture is which learn from one generation to the other generation. It is a kind of beliefs, attitudes, the values, the norms, the customs of a society which transform from one generation to uh, another generation. So you see, then the question sometimes comes, does culture is a static element? No, culture is a dynamics. And if culture is dynamic, why culture change? If the culture is changing, sometimes also the environment has its impact on the culture because the human beings in the course of its interaction has given a different shape to the environment and which has having a different kind of repercussion to the existing human populations for which the human being used to change its culture because the culture is to be changed as per the changing environment. Okay, because you see, I have already told you now, which we'll also discuss later on. Because you see, the suppose you are alone at your house and you are just sitting on a chair near to the windows of your house and looking out the outside and it is the mid of summer. You are looking at the outside and thinking something. You just write down what exactly you are thinking. What is exactly your reaction? What is your perception of the nature and the imagination you have been developed within your mind. And think about in the month of winter, the same space you are sitting close to your windows, you are alone at house, looking at your the environment which is surrounding your house and thinking something. You also again document all these thinkings which you have developed and all. Then at the third stage, suppose it is a month of rainy seasons and you are again sitting in the same space, you are alone at house, looking at the outside and it is raining outside and you think about that what exactly the ideas you are developing within your mind. And this is one example what I'm giving that how your imagination used to be changed once the natural setting is being changed with the fluctuation of a season. And if you look into another thinking of human, our means what I'm telling, our thinking style also changed. Suppose you see you are going for a morning, you gets up to early, very early mornings, and thought of going for a walk in a very natural setup. The you one day you have a you go for a walk completely uh, without taking any musical instrument and all. You just go for a walking and all very early morning when the entire oh, the world was silent, the outside world is silent and all. You will find a different kind of imagination because when you are walking, you are only not only enjoying, you are not only doing the exercise, but the intention is giving a peace to your mind, and you are giving a peace to your eye. You are enjoying the beauty of the nature by seeing the beauty of the natures, and at the same time you are listening the kind of different the ecological rhymes. You see the how the birds are creating the sounds, how the nature is creating the sounds, how the different insects are creating the sounds, how the when the wind is blowing, uh, how it is creating a very kind of rhythms, the environment, the trees, the leaves are creating some sounds, kind of rhythms. It is giving a different kind of peace to your mind. And in the next day, you put your earphone on your ear and put your mobile in your pocket, listen to songs and go. You'll find that there are two differences, because going in a very open eye and open ear, listening the music of the nature, and the next day you are going with the listening the music of your mobile and all. So you'll find there are two differences in kind of sitting in your lifestyle and all. So because the environment immediately change your thinking, immediately change your walking style, immediately gives you kind of your mental situation is being changed also as per the natural settings. So that means the nature has always a kind of influence on the human lifestyle and all. Uh, uh, See, we generally, if you see that, whenever even you'll see, uh, whenever a marketing company used to come, whenever a supermarket used to become and set off in a particular area, they always give emphasis on the natural surrounding, the natural environment, the nature, because it is not that the supermarket which is uh, existed in the south usually comes with the same kind of cultural setup and cultural pattern, while it's set up in the north, because generally it used to vary as per the region. Once the region is used to be changed, their setup used to be changed, because generally that's why most of the time the different business groups, the different companies, when they're setting up their business and all, they used to do cultural readings. They used to do cultural research for which before setting up their industry, so that you will have an because when you want to target the market also, you have to understand the cultural setting, and which is used to be changed as per the changing of the environment. So that means you see here you'll find that there is a huge kind of relationship between the nature and culture. The human culture, in generally we use lots of symbols to express the specific ideologies and social structures and to represent the specific culture. The symbols carry the different meanings that depends upon one cultural background. The meaning of symbol is very inherited from one generation to another generation, and all these symbols are culturally learned. We learn different kind of symbols. You see, suppose uh, um, see, you'll find that suppose whenever we are using the poison in the field, it is not that somebody is standing there in the field and telling we have used the poison. Rather, we are just putting a kind of red flag which reflect to the others that the poison is being used. We should not allow our animals to get into that croplands. Generally, our domestic animals we never allow to that lands. Suppose whenever a train is coming, if you stand in front of a train and tell stop, 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 it won't stop. But just you simply you show the red flag and it will also stop. So which reflect that the means in our day-to-day life. And there are lots of the symbol because I was doing a very small study on the symbolic interpretation of rural India, means how we usually use the different kind of symbols in our day-to-day life, and that symbols is being reflected in our culture in a different setting, in a different setup. And you see, uh, I have already told you, if you look into this specifically the Indian culture is nothing but Indian agriculture. Our agricultural setting, our agricultural practice usually also change as per our cultural settings. Once our cultural setting is being changed, our agricultural practice is usually changed. So means our use of different technology, use of different kind of knowledge, and our different the cropping patterns, and our what kind of livestock we'll keep. Right? All these things used to be depend upon the our cultural setting, our environment used to decide specifically our environment used to decide what kind of cultural setup we are going to develop in our locality. So that means you see, it is high time now to look into from a very theoretical perspective the relationship between the kind of nature and culture, because the if we really understand the theoretical understanding between the nature and culture, and how we have because sometimes what happen, we have commodified the nature, even sometimes we have seen that we have commodified the culture, so that we can understand the nature and culture relationship. We will look the things from a very theoretical perspective, and we have to understand the dichotomy also, not only the relationship but also the dichotomy between the nature and culture, which is being constructed over the centuries. So I'll stop here. Any doubt till now, you tell me. Through that the theoretical debates and all, we can enter in the next class. Any clarification you need now, till now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
No, sir.
no, sir.
So
No, sir.
I'll try to download some of the e-books, because I have lots of books, but all these are in hard copy. I'll try to get some e-books and all. Otherwise, even you can search in the Google the relationship between nature and culture and all. It is very otherwise you can type that cultural ecology and all. You read that. These are very interesting things which you'll find, and because generally